Hi, good morning to you. This is Anthony Parent of IRS Medic. Today is Monday, September 16th, and I am coming to you live. And today we're going to be talking about a subject that always comes up in conversation. It's really something that my dad and I would have a lot of conversations about, sort of the absurdity of the US tax system. And it's really this issue. Answering this question, is the US tax code actually something the American people asked for? And now this is the thing. We're going to go to the IRS penalty regime, how penalties are assessed, why, and how they can hit you. We're going to go into that to see how our penalties assessed. And this is the question we want to ask. Would you want to be ruined by something you can't understand? Would that be a reasonable position of people that there's an American constituency? There's a constituency of voters out there to say, you know what? Our number one goal for Washington, D.C. is we want to make sure they pass laws we can't understand. And no matter what we do, trying to understand it, we cannot escape those penalties. Would you think that's a reasonable position? Now, here's something to think about. Form 1040 instructions are written to an 11th grade level. This is true, 9th to 11th grade level, depending on the scoring mechanism you use. Adult reading comprehension in the US is the average of the 6th grade reading level, right? So we are here to believe that, oh, you know what? Americans really want this complicated tax code. We really want to be ruled by this thing when over half the people can't possibly understand what any of this means, right? Isn't that something? That's what we're led to believe, that a majority of Americans would agree to be ruled by something they can't understand. And well, hey, that's why you hire a tax professional, right? You hire a tax professional because you know what? You can't understand it. It's not fair. So, hey, look, just hire the right tax professional and your problems will go away. Well, what happens if they make a mistake? Your tax professional makes a mistake. Will that protect you? Well, the answer is yeah, maybe not. This is the thing you need to understand. The IRS can always penalize you no matter how complicated the issue is, and no matter how mentally incompetent you are. And so the question is, who would vote for this? All right, and we're going to answer this question. My name is Anthony Parents. I am the founder of IRS Medic, and I am partner at the Foes and Partners. And so we're going to be going over this today. I created a little guide for you to sort of understand how tax professional penalties work and penalties again among individuals work, so you understand what the law is. And then you'll see, like, I don't think any of us would ever really vote for this. And so here we get to, can you delegate the way? That's the word that we're going to use, delegate. That's the word my dad and I would always use. Can you delegate away your tax filing obligations, right? Now, the regulations say you can. That's the thing. They say you can actually delegate away your authority, but when we look at it, you'll see it actually means nothing. It really means nothing. So here's the thing. A U.S. taxpayer who is not of sound mind and body can delegate their U.S. tax compliance obligations to a tax professional, and according to these IRS regulations, right? So right here, this is, you can delegate it, right? We can go, okay, here's the way you do it. You get it. You are appointed. You have someone appoint a conservative for you with probate court, wherever the court may be, and then that person will now be the responsible party. It could be a tax professional. You have delegated your authority away, but what does it actually do for you? Here's where it is. Let's take a closer look. Returns made by agents. Okay. So you could have someone else figure out your tax return by reason or disease or injury. Now that person could be liable for making the return. Okay. They can be the person liable for it. But ultimately, no matter what, if we actually go through this, okay, here's a whole bunch of stuff. We're going to go through it. File form 8938, 2848. But when we get down to it, I'm going to get to it. Here it is. Here comes the payoff. Here it is. This right here in bold. The taxpayer and his agent, if any, are responsible for the return as made and incur liability for the penalties provided for erroneous, false, and fraudulent returns. Okay? So now just understand what this means. Understand what this means. This means if you are not of sound mind and body, and you're probably not even in a position to pick your conservator because you're not of sound mind and body. You could be in a coma, right? You're not even aware. You don't even have the ability to choose a tax professional. You don't even have the ability to choose to get a conservator. Yet here it is. The IRS holds you 100% liable. You are liable. The taxpayer and his agent, her agent, is liable. But are they going to go after? Are they actually going to go after your tax professional? The answer is, it's interesting because I've been doing this for a while. And I can tell you this: taxpayer preparer penalties are very rare. It's very rare. And I've encountered so many cases where the tax professional clearly made a mistake, didn't communicate this to the client. We have it in there. And the IRS just doesn't, they don't bother with that. They're like, the tax professionals, you know what? We're really not going to be able to ruin them that much. Rather, the individuals we can terrorize and ruin. So that's what we have right here. This is what it's going. If you are not of sound mind and body, you cannot use that as a defense. And in fact, we actually we had a client who was in a coma. And in this case, the IRS was looking to assess 5471 penalties because he had a controlled foreign corporation and he didn't file his form 5471 because he was in a coma. So the IRS actually first initially said, "Oh yeah, we're going to penalize you, and being in a coma is not reasonable cause. You should have known you were going to be in a coma." Is really the point, and you should have known you were going to be in a coma, and you should have looked to put a switch in place in case you went into that coma. You should have had it. So that's really the ridiculousness of the U.S. tax code. So explained so quickly. We cannot comply. We cannot understand. Now I'm going to go through some of the penalties out there, so you can kind of see, the difference between taxpayer penalties and tax professional penalties, and they're different. And there's somebody has a little bit more than the other, right? So here is where we go to tax professional penalties. Okay, this is where you get into the tax professional penalties. When you're taking an unreasonable position, and here's the penalties: are greater of $1,000 or 50% of the income derived. Now, this is the thing. I don't run into these. I've been doing this for 20 years, and we get calls from, we get calls from other tax professionals. We rarely run into these. When I do get the call from a tax professional who is facing fines and penalties, it's essentially because they were running a scam. Because it's essentially they were just running a complete fraudulent outfit that really wasn't a tax firm. So it was really like, they were just farming, taxpayers for fraudulent refunds and try to jack them up and then taking a percentage of the fraudulent refund. That is the most of the tax preparer penalties. It's really not done in the cases where, oh hey, you know what? There was a 5471 required, and you put that on Schedule C. It's rare for that. It's really the taxpayer penalties, from my experience, are only in the situations where the tax preparer was essentially running just a scam outfit. And there was a recent one in Texas. This is one where the tax professional was actually indicted. This was somebody I was tracking for a while, somebody who I've had a little bit of history was sending a lot of wrong messages out there. John Castro. He was an attorney who was out there promoting fraudulent refund claims. Ultimately, he wound up getting indicted for the things, but essentially it wasn't, again, this is the point I'm trying to make. It wasn't the point over whether it was a reasonable or not reasonable tax position. He was just basically helping people not pay taxes. And that's really the only place where you'll find it, is that you'll find these penalties only really being assessed. And actually, he wasn't assessed all these penalties. He was assessed the criminal charges. So even these penalties weren't necessarily assessed to him, these civil ones, rather the criminal ones, because he got so bad, right? So these are all the penalties that could hit your tax professional, but it's very rare that they ever do. We're going through their understatement due to willful or reckless conduct. Sure, that can happen. Failure to retain a copy or list. These are things, but the IRS just doesn't look for these penalty mechanisms. And I think it's probably really has to do with what's the collection mechanism? What's the collection mechanism for assessing these penalties? And now you have to create a new account for this tax professional and put them in the hopper. Whereas if you're just penalizing a taxpayer, hey, look, it's the normal deficiency procedures. Just throw that as another bill. Use your entire collection regime to go after these people as hard as you can, right? And that's where we are. So that's what it is. We got seven. We had seven. All right. So we had 7 penalties. Okay. 7 penalties available for tax preparers. Okay. Now we're going to get into taxpayers, right? There's a few more here. Okay. Failure to file a return, right? Hey, you didn't file a return by the due date, right? And there's one for you. And so if you are incapacitated and your tax professional doesn't file a return because maybe you didn't even do it, you could be hit with a failure to file a tax return, failure to pay the tax. Failure to pay the tax is always on you. And that's the number one thing. Even if you file a return on time, your tax preparer does their job, you have the ability, you have the duty to pay your tax, and your tax preparer will not be on the hook for that. And that's the thing. Whenever you're signing a return, this is what's crazy. This is what's crazy. It's really hard to sue a tax professional for malpractice, and the reason why is this: because your signature is on that return, right? And they're saying, well, hey, you're signing this that you understood this. Like the very reason why you're hiring a tax professional is because you don't understand it, but the tax return itself makes you say, "Oh yeah, no, I'm responsible for everything. I understand everything here." Right? And I mean, who would vote for that thing? It's and the very reason for the existence of your tax professional is the reason why you should not be signing that tax return under penalty law. But that's exactly what the law requires you to do. It does, right? So here's some other things you have: accuracy related penalties. You're going to be on the hook. We're at 4. Fraud. If you're now, by the way, these are just the civil penalties. We're not talking about the criminal ones out there. These are just civil penalties that you may be assessed. Fraud penalties, 66, 63. Failure to deposit taxes, frivolous tax submissions. You notice that? Wait, you know what? Frivolous tax submissions. Did we see that for tax preparers? Wait a second. Wait a second. I don't think. Well, let me go back a slide. Failure. So sorry, we're back. We're all right. So we're going back. So here we are back with tax preparer settlements. Do you see that? Do you see where a tax professional can be liable for filing a fraudulent return? Look at that. Isn't that interesting? Right? You, as the tax preparer, taxpayer, you're liable for submitting a frivolous tax submission, but your tax preparer isn't. Isn't that crazy? You could be going to your tax preparer and say, "Hey, is this a good position to take?" "Oh yeah, it's fine." Well, you're the only one who's going to be penalized. Isn't that crazy? Now here we go. A lot of those failure to file informational returns. These are your domestic ones. 1099s. By the way, your 1099 penalty isn't all that much if you don't do it. It's only like $250. It's far less than people realize. And the IRS isn't actually even all that aggressive on ensuring 1099 compliance when they examine you. It's really interesting. Failure to furnish correct payee statements. Here's another one. And failure to retain records. Failing to honor a levy. That's if you were issued a levy and you didn't do it for another taxpayer. I don't know if that one really belongs there. Now, our last one: failure to report foreign financial accounts. Now, this is only for the U.S. tax code, not FBARs, because that's a separate one. Of course, that's a separate one because it's not in the tax code. 6038D. That's a huge, huge issue for a lot of people. And we also have the various reporting penalties. So, and this is, $10,000 penalties all over the place, and can be even a certain percentage. And so this is the question I have for everyone, right? And Jack Dack. Yeah. So our tax preparers jailed. It happens incredibly rare, Jack Dack. It does happen. And again, this is going to be in the situation where someone is, and okay, so here's some things that I heard of that I came across. There was, and this still comes around and it blows up. There is a way that, and I'm not going to explain how to do it because I could probably get in trouble because I've seen the return. There was a way. I think they have their checks in place to stop this, but there was a way, and this is sort of how the scam was going about, Jack Dack. I'm going to tell you that this was big in the African American community in the United States, and this is what it would be: is that some tax preparer would approach a pastor to a church, and they would say, "Hey, look, I do look. I'm here concerned about your constituency. That by the way, the government actually has created reparations through the tax code for people, Black descendants of slaves. And so, hey, pastor, I'll do yours for free. I'll do your amended return for free and claim your reparations for free. Just say good things about me to your congregation, and I'll do all theirs as well. I'm just going to charge them, but I'll do yours for free." So the taxpayer will come in and amend that return for the pastor, and the pastor will get that money. And it did. It was like 50 grand. They would get the money. Pastor said, "Oh my God, here's the money. I got the money." So the pastor said, "Yep, this person's legit." And now would tell everyone in the congregation, "Hey, use this guy, get free money. I mean, why not? Hey, make sure to give some to the church too." And so now this individual is now making massive, doing a whole congregation's fraudulent returns. And now what happens in that case is this is what happened: is the IRS sent all these refunds out that were incorrect. The IRS systems caught up, like, wait a second, we just sent out 50 grand, all these people that we shouldn't get. And now Now they're going after all the people who claim the money. They find out all the people who got that 50 grand, they already spent it. And otherwise they're dirt broke. So there's no real collection. So in that case, that's where a criminal case will come up, Jack Dack, because that's just a totally different thing. It's not. So in that case, I'm not really saying that's a civil penalty because that was a criminal engagement, so they're getting charged criminally. So, taxpayers getting jailed incredibly rare, but it's because they're basically just running a fraudulent refund outfit, and it's still incredibly rare. The IRS is talking about a lot of the employee retention credit claims that are made, and like, oh my God, all these people claim these claims they weren't entitled to, and for those of you who don't know, this is actually true. With COVID, there were huge, massive relief checks available to employers. If you look me up, you can see my company took some too. You can see how much every company took. But a lot of companies were out there saying, hey, look, this is the way to get the money. And they file fraudulent claims. And a lot of these are for millions and millions of dollars. And if you're looking at, what the IRS says they're doing, like, oh, we're going after these people super hard. And the answer is no, they're not. No, they're not. They're going after them as hard as they need to for a press release, but they're really not going after them, people, because they don't have the staff to track all of these, and statutes are going to run up. So taxpayers getting jailed are really different. All right, so it's a question on taxpayers' due diligence checklist. Worth anything? Yeah, huh? Well, I guess the question is, TE, what will it do, right? If you don't do that 8867, that the taxpayer due diligence, if you don't do that, that's a penalty on the. Your question is, I haven't seen it ever done yet. I have not ever seen that done, and that's actually rare. That's a really new form. The paid preparers due diligence. I think that came out in 2014, 2015, somewhere around there. I have yet to see a penalty on that. I don't think they really do that. That's just more, that's the IRS, because this is really what it is. That's the IRS just saying, hey, you're going to be police for us, right? That what they want to do, because the IRS wants to do everything on the cheap and wants to have the tax industry do all the work for them. This is the thing that they just sort of put that out there. And, most tax professionals will follow the IRS to the letter of the rule. And so I think they haven't penalized it because they don't need to. And I would also say this, the IRS has an inventory of large people to go after. There's a huge, large inventory of people to go after that, they haven't really put that much of a dent in. So that would be one I'm going to say is their lowest priority. And that's just there to scare preparers into making sure that they're being the policeman. Yeah, and I would say this. Yeah, exactly. Some of the tax prep pros I work with in the past included, others didn't. This is something that we include just because we just do it. But if it wasn't included, it's just not an area that the IRS is prosecuting on. And again, overall, and I would say this overall, the IRS is very rarely asserting tax professional penalties, other than when it's just clear overt fraud. Okay, just clear overt fraud. That is when they're doing it, but it's also usually criminal too. So that's why I'm saying most of these are just not done. I haven't seen them. 20 years of doing this, I get calls from everybody. Just doesn't come up. But the taxpayer penalties. Oh yeah, this is my bread and butter. This is what I'm doing all day and every day. The tax preparer penalties. Not a lot of those cases. Taxpayers, it's everybody. And this is usually the number one issue why people are reaching out to me, because these penalties get out of control. They can't figure out what's going on. I really appreciate that comment, to you. Thank you so much for that. All right, so that's what we had. So I think this might actually finish it up today. Yeah, John and Keith weren't able to make it today, so we're a little quicker today. Just getting over this, and really, this is the takeaway, and this is the question I have. I did want to share my screen here. Hang on, I want to show you guys something just to understand what we're talking about. All right, so this is Mike Sylvester. He's someone that I follow on Twitter. He's really popular on Twitter by tax professionals, pro and con. I kind of, I see Mike's thing. He doesn't really fit into me, but he is to me, he is that quintessential CPA. When you're looking for the opinion of that quintessential CPA, Mike Sylvester generally has it. So I like following him because he's got a pulse on where the tax industry is, and he's a CPA firm. And so, this is his comment right here, is that, and I think it's really, really helpful that what he has here is that he has this comment. There are too many people preparing income tax returns. They are unqualified to prepare, which is true. 100% true. Size of firm is not an indicator of competence. Absolutely true. I agree with 100% with you, Mike. And now he says the 5 CPAs in our firm have roughly 75 years of experience as CPAs, and we regularly turn down work we feel we are not qualified to do. Okay. That's the part I want to hang on. Okay. We regularly turn down work we are not qualified to do. Think about this. Mike Sylvester, quintessential CPA. His firm, five CPAs in the firm, 75 years of experience. And you know what? He goes, yeah, there's some work we don't want to do. There's some work we don't want to do. Do you understand how insane this is? Folks, do you understand how insane this is? And I'm not criticizing Mike. He's probably got a really good policy. Knowing your limits is a great policy to have. But Mike says, yeah, I have limits. We have limits as a 75 years of experience doing this. We have our limitations. We don't have it. And I've looked at Mike's other stuff, things that Mike doesn't like foreign income. Don't blame him because it's not for everybody. There's a whole thing that Mike doesn't like masses. He likes just the things that he can do. And this is such a crazy. I mean, we should be astounded that no matter how good your CPA is, you know what? There could be something that's like, yeah, I don't want to do that. I don't know enough about that. It's crazy. It's complicated. I can't understand that. Isn't that amazing? So I appreciate Mike and his honesty, and I wish him good luck with everything. But don't you see, folks, how insane this could possibly be, and that no one in the world, right? Do you see it? That no one in the world could possibly vote for this. No one in the world would want to vote for this. And this is my entire point, is that we are subjugated to this. The U.S. income tax is not something we asked for. It's not something we asked for. It's not something we voted for. And this is just more evidence to say, you know what? How did this thing entirely happen? It's passed, how it was passed and how it's been expanded, how the law is passed, and now how the law is passed now, where, I mean, there's not even an expectation that lawmakers make the law. We know that. We don't expect our lawmakers to sit down and write these laws. We know they go off to some attorneys in DC, and then we know a lot of the laws come from lobbyist groups. And then the lobbyist group just hands this law to a tax preparer, someone in the U.S. Senate, a congressman who doesn't read it, can't understand it, because they're looking at this law. It's like, okay, we're going to amend Title 26 here. We're going to amend this. We're going to amend this. What does it mean? They don't know. They're just told what to do, right? We know this. We know this for a fact. The Supreme Court knows this. And so we're here. And this is the point I want to get us across, because too much, often, as individuals, that we're stuck with this thing to say, oh man, America's so messed up. We keep on voting for the wrong things, man. When are people going to start voting right, man? What is wrong with people? Why do they keep voting for this stuff? No one's voting for it, guys. That's the answer. No one is voting for this. There's not one person in the world you can find in America who says, you know what, the U.S. tax code, the way it is exactly perfect. There's not one person in the U.S. who actually knows what the whole tax code is. And as we are talking about these crazy, crazy penalties that the IRS assesses, you can call the IRS to call the IRS about your penalty. And you'll call a number and you'll have someone who has no idea what they're talking about, right? So that's the point. But we are just ruled, we are ruled by these things that we cannot. Oh, yeah, there we go. Yeah, exactly. Oh, all right. But yeah, here we go. Yeah, exactly. Let's go back to 1913, right? 1913, right? The income tax was proposed, was passed in the law in conjunction with the Federal Reserve. They work in conjunction. 1913 was a bad year for America. It was really a coup d'etat in the Constitution. Wilson later admitted that he did something bad, right? And it led us to World War I, because now the U.S. government had an endless supply of money, right? The income tax was just going to be a wee little tax on the richest people, 1913. And it was going to pay for social utopia. And the other thing too, the other argument was made for is like, well, now, now that we're taxing income, we can get off of taxing excise taxes on alcohol. Now we'll be able to ban alcohol, right? That'll be a great idea. And we could tax income. So it was all part of a whole takeover, and very quickly. And that's what's so hilarious when you hear politicians talk about, we're going to tax the richest, we're going to have a wealth tax. It's all nonsense. Oh, wow. Got my first super sticker. Golden Eagles. Thank you very much for that 199. I appreciate that, Golden Eagles. Yeah. Thank you very much. And so, boy, yep, I'm going to have a little bit of taxes to pay on that 199, Golden Eagles, but thank you very much anyway. But back to you there. Yeah, the income tax is temporary. It's all lies. And actually, and this is the point, if you start looking at this research, this is something I want to tell because I was one, my own evolution. I started this. I believe the laws were the laws, and that people that were claiming that there was no law to say you could tax income were just full of it. They were all nonsense. And that the people who were claiming that the 16th Amendment was never properly ratified, that they were just, they're making it up. They're conspiracy lunatics. They have no idea what they're talking about. Then I actually started looking at what they said. I didn't look at what the IRS said they said. I actually started looking at what they said. And I am now convinced the 16th Amendment wasn't properly ratified because no one in the world would ever voluntarily to be subject to this. Rather, little things were passed, and then the government said big things were passed. And so Americans asked for us, this is what they want, this is what they want. And no, we don't want it. We are ruled. This is a coup d'etat. Americans do not want to be ruled by the Federal Reserve. Americans do not want to be ruled by foreign bankers. But here we are, right? And how did that happen? And so, really the point, I think why tax is so fascinating. Tax is so fascinating because it's the number one area where the government is out to get you, really. So if you want to know where the government's doing otherwhere, just look at what it's doing in the tax code. How blatant it is. How blatant it is that this could not be the function, the result that we have cannot be the function of a functioning republic. There is no way. There's not anyone in the world who would ever want to be subject by something. Would you agree? Would you want to be ruled by something you couldn't possibly understand? And by ruled, I mean financially ruined. Financially ruined because there was something you didn't understand and also potentially put in prison as well. Who would vote for that, right? And the answer is nobody. That's the important thing. And that's the message of today. So I want to thank everyone. I got to hop off. I got a lot of things to do. And I want to thank everyone for joining me today. I appreciate the comments. But let's think about this. Is the income tax really reflecting the will of the American people? And there is no way in the planet it does. Just remember that. And so again, my name is Anthony Parent. I run IRS Medic. I appreciate you watching today. Really, we have some great podcasts coming up. The next one, we are going to be talking about, let me get to this one here. We're going to be talking about why most FATCA litigation fails. This is another one, right? Another one. Who would, let me get this one up here. Who would want to be ruled, right? What American voted to say, you know what? I want the government to be able to vacuum up. I mean, what a beautiful picture. Vacuum up all data on where I am. Put it in a database that will probably be hacked, right? If you have a social security number, you've probably been hacked already. 10 billion tax records have been hacked, right? Who would want to say, you know what, government, what I want you to do is I want you to collect all financial information on me, put it in one database so that a hostile actor or just some hacker can come and grab that information and now make my life living hell because they stole my identity, right? Who would want that? And we see the same thing with FATCA. So who really wants that? So that's going to be our next episode we're going to talk about. So I hope you turn on your notifications so you know when we're going live. And if you are facing some tax trouble, I do invite you to reach out to me. I am a tax attorney, been doing this for 20 years. And let me just get a link up here. We do a lot of international stuff. We clean up a lot of international problems. And this is especially in this area here of international taxation. These penalties get out of control. So if you're finding yourself in a situation where you're like, what is going on here? My tax preparer let me down, but now the IRS is coming after me. Or maybe you feel like you should have known better. Well, I should have known better. And you're beating yourself up and you're looking at an aggressive IRS. Or maybe you just wanted to get some tax returns prepared by someone who actually is on your side. You could reach out to us, irsmedic.com/offshore. Go there, book a time to speak to us. We'd love to talk to you about your tax issues, get this under control, give you some peace of mind so you understand truly what you're looking with, and have a firm that's really, really on your side. So with that, I'm going to conclude, and I just want to thank everyone for watching again. This is Anthony Parent of IRS Medic. I really appreciate everyone tuning in today, and hopefully we all understand and we'll look forward to that day. brutal IRS, and the government can look at this to say, explain themselves. The government needs to explain themselves. Why are you passing laws that a majority of Americans can't possibly understand? Ask them the next time. Thanks again. This is Anthony Parent.